whenever you have that kind of record, that's that good pop formula, and when it's successful, it's really successful, and little kids like cool stuff as well as big kids. But what happens is that when it's too many little kids, you know, the powers that be always go, they suck.
As far as the media are concerned, you must be a bag of shit.
We've never had a particularly great time with music critics. They like bands that are for boys, and Duran Duran is for girls and boys, and anything in between.
Though critics refused to embrace them, Duran was besieged by fans seeking the ultimate autograph.
It was a babe fest backstage. For all the security, somehow the girls would get through. And it didn't hurt that they all were the supermodel type.
Last time I was in Japan, all I was interested in was finding women. And I'd go to the clubs where the Western models meet, and I'd take them back home with me. And I'd spend all my time either in the nightclub or in my bedroom bonking.
We were at a private impromptu party in the hotel, and this girl had been making a play for John all evening. He'd ignored her. So she just went, "John," and he turned around and she just peed all over the floor.
I wanted to make records and I wanted to go on stage and play, you know. I never really thought in terms of, you know, adulation and whatnot. You know, as you start getting in that groove and all that tasty stuff that comes along with it, that's very addictive, that stuff.
Coming up, the non-stop party takes its toll on John Taylor.
My drug of choice was coke. You know, I was able to be this pin-up guy 24 hours a day, especially after midnight. You know, it was really useful then.
In Wild Boy, Simon Le Bon nearly earns his wings.
Simon nearly did die in that video. That is a true story. He's strapped to the windmill, and the windmill did break. His head is underwater. In other words, it was complete up.
When Behind the Music continues.
Please tell me now.
By 1983, Duran Duran had captured the hearts of a growing legion of female fans around the world. When their third album, Seven and the Ragged Tiger, was released, it sold 1 million copies in just a month. As always, Duran's videos were a key to their mass appeal. The landmark video, For the Wild Boys, was an ambitious and expensive foray into the realm of feature filmmaking for the band and director Russell Mulcahy.
Russell had gotten William Burroughs to give him the rights to turn the book of the Wild Boys into a film.
And we'd kind of written this song, and in a quite cheekily, really, sort of pinched the title. So we called him up and said, "Oh, by the way, you know that movie you've got the rights to? We've written the song for it."
I think what he did was produced his fantasy trailer of what he would have made the movie The Wild Boys look like.
And the film never came to fruition, but the video for the song, I think, became his vision of the movie, and it was an absolutely amazing piece of film.
But shooting the Wild Boys video was a near-death experience for Simon Le Bon.
Simon nearly did die in that video. That is a true story.
For one sequence in the video, Simon was tied to a windmill when disaster struck, and the windmill accidentally stopped while he was underwater.
If nobody had noticed, if everybody had been looking the other way, if I had been unconscious, maybe it might have been a bit dangerous.
In other words, it was complete up. He's strapped to the windmill, and the windmill did break. His head is underwater. And it took a good 2 minutes with a tube in his mouth so he could breathe to get him off. That thing was jammed.
Maybe we should just go for the much more exciting and approachable and interesting point of view. Yeah, it's really dangerous. I could have died doing that.
While Duran courted danger offstage, excitement continued to follow the band on tour as their concerts became sold-out teenage screamfests. By '84, their devoted fans had bought 5 million albums, and there were no signs the hysteria would ever die down.
With that much fun going on at the shows, where everybody, there were 20, 30,000 people having that much fun, you couldn't just unplug everything.
We were celebrating really what we'd achieved, and no one was there to stop us. And sometimes it would get way out of hand.
Stories of their private partying soon became a very public property.
The excessive side of it became something that the media started to get their teeth into. You know, sex and drugs and rock and roll. And it tends to be in that order that people are interested in your group. You know, the music definitely is the last thing they're interested in.
The sheer interest
in the human factor, that these boys aren't just all wrapped in cling film. They do have habits, increased record sales, and humanized us. We weren't just all sitting there mincing around a box of Max Factor. And that, you know, on the 42nd floor, there might be something salacious going on after midnight.
But for John Taylor, the party was getting out of control.
My drug of choice was coke. I was able to be this pin-up guy, you know, 24 hours a day, you know, especially after midnight. You know, it was really useful then.
That's the thing about John, he's very, very intense about everything. So if he gets involved in one thing, it's 120% always.
You know, the carpet's the wrong color in the hotel room, you know, so what do? You know, put your fist through a pane of glass, you know, and, you know, hello. I mean, I couldn't have been more foolish, really. I got read the riot act, and we had to cancel some dates.
Even now, I suppose I find it hard to realize how bad that problem had become for him.
The problem had become so bad for John that he entered a rehab program. It would take years for him to maintain sobriety.
I'm quite proud about having been into rehab. I think it's better to be a declared alcoholic, you know, a recovered alcoholic than not.
I mean, there's nobody watching this that hasn't got a skeleton, that hasn't done something, that hasn't had a drink, a line, a joint. But pop music is not worth paying the price for. Because that's all it is, pop music.
At the close of 1984, an exhausted Duran Duran took a long overdue, open-ended break.
We'd been on this 5-year roller coaster that hadn't stopped anywhere. And we'd sort of reached the top, and we were able to look back and say, wow, that was something of a ride, but what happened along the way?
With Duran on hiatus, the individual band members sought new avenues of expression.
At the time, I felt Andy was really underused. I said, you know, we're going to do something more aggressive next time, you and I.
John and Andy formed their own band.